My name is T. James Reagan, and this is the T. James Reagan podcast, recorded in Newark, New Jersey. Normally, at the start of this podcast, I advertise my novels, but since I'm scared of what Swifties are capable of, and I've seen how these high-calorie HR women write reviews on Goodreads, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to immediately get down to brass tacks. Liking Taylor Swift as a man is generally a tactic to try to appeal to girls. But most of the Swifties I know are sexless in a way that renders them into America's first cousins, so that definitely isn't what I was trying to do. There's a reason that the Swiftie uniform is a cardigan, the West's answer to the burqa. The truth is, I like Taylor Swift because I like Taylor Swift. I love Taylor Swift. I love her music and her face and her neuroses. I love the whole package. I'm just really there for it. I get her. I've never met her. I've never seen her in person. I've never been to a concert, but I understand her. She creates art with the same psychotic work-first drive that's allowed me to write at least 4 pages every day for the past 2 decades. I don't have a spouse, and she doesn't have a spouse, and I don't have children, and she doesn't have children. For us, a relationship is a refilling of the creative bucket, and when that bucket is full, it spills out onto the page, and once the ink dries, it's on to the next one. To give you a baseline for the kind of Taylor Swift fan I am, let's do the classic top 13 favorite Swift songs. Mine, in no particular order, are Long Live, New Romantics, Back to December, Willow, All Too Well, 10-minute version, Taylor version, State of Grace, Red, Haunted, You're Losing Me, The Far Too Short, Now That We Don't Talk, You're on Your Own, Kid, Nothing New, and Forever and Always. Since I'm a middle-aged man, I discovered Taylor all the way back when we would still buy CDs. The first album I ever heard of hers was Speak Now on CD. I don't know how old I was, but I do know that when I first heard the album, I was still capable of those huge teenage feelings where a romance can have the type of consequences that feel like their life or death. Listening to Taylor wasn't my choice. I ended up listening to the CD because a friend put it on as we drove around town, drinking Starbucks and looking at Halloween decorations. We were old enough that Halloween stopped feeling special, and it had been rendered as just another excuse to get drunk in someone's unfinished basement, but this time we could also wear vaguely inappropriate costumes. As I tried to replicate a childlike wonder I no longer felt, I heard Taylor, on Speak Now, still crazed by the newness of big emotions. I fell into the album as it played. The shriek of, come on, don't leave me like this, I thought I had you figured out, brought me back to exactly how it was to fall for someone, being sure of them, and then having that understanding shattered. It was that desperate little girl voice clashing with the early grown-up experiences that made me so enamored with what I was hearing. When Back to December played, it was this little girl reaching for a moment now gone but still grandly felt. The Taylor on Back to December was no different than me, sitting in that passenger seat as ghosts of a holiday I could no longer truly experience again drifted by my window. This obsessive connection that I had formed with Speak Now, I guess you always remember your first, also, coincidentally enough, created the biggest problem I have with Taylor, and it's the TV versions, or Taylor's version, of her album. The Taylor who made that third album turned me into an obsessive fan. Then hearing the Taylor's version of that album was like having a mirror held up to me, allowing me to see how truly pathetic being a Taylor fan can be. With Speak Now TV, any desperate emotion aside from pride or resentment has been removed. Mechanical recreations of pure feelings render songs that once evoked such specific emotions into an exercise in devaluing something beautiful because of an obsessive need to retain monetary value. The pathetic Hayley Williams identity politics brain rot anti-art lyric changes inspired by toxic girl boss culture were the only deviations that were undertaken on these tracks, and it just further denigrates something I love dearly. What Hayley and Taylor refuse to acknowledge is that girls can be shitty. It's not illegal. You can make art about bad girls. Those two know it's not illegal for a woman to be shitty because they were shitty to Olivia and faced absolutely no repercussions for it. More on that later. As I listened to Speak Now TV, I realized that AI has gotten so good that I literally couldn't tell if Taylor recorded this album or if she merely used her current AI voice profile and fed it sanitized Speak Now lyrics that had been audited by BuzzFeed. It's humiliating to take your art and recreate it with none of the initial passion, merely for commerce, especially when you have an insane amount of money and only leave your house for a situation that will make you more money. And back to December TV, Tay drones. I haven't seen them in a while, sounding totally flat. On a real LP, this would have been an immediate cause for a second take. Taylor would feel it was untrue. But now, with Pack Days, she probably said, good enough, cue up the next karaoke track, if she recorded the lyrics at all. Honestly, no matter how many times I've listened to it, Speak Now, Taylor's version, is like fucking your high school sweetheart on her 37th birthday in an apartment that you're paying for, but don't live in. I'm not sure that's a popular take, but if I'm going to review this album, Taylor shouldn't have to answer to my own deranged view of her work and my obsessive history with her. My history with Taylor is so detailed that if you've never listened to a single Taylor Swift song and you've only known about her from her cultural mentions, my lens should give you the entire backstory you need when you actually sit down and listen to her music. You'll know why people react the way they do. And how's this for an unhinged starting point? On the first day of 2021, I tweeted the following, entirely in Kanye caps. The best comeback of 2020 is Taylor Swift, Lover Was Ass, and Miss Americana was a for-profit commercial where Tay acted like she tweeted the nuclear launch codes because she supported some boring dem that every Twitter idiot loved. But now, Folklore and Evermore have me in my feelings again. As you can see from my Kanye tweet, I was really into Folklore and Evermore. I mean, for example, I also found a tweet from December 2021 where I said, I never believed y'all when you kept bitching that silence is violence until Taylor didn't acknowledge Evermore's birthday. Now I'm ready to file an assault charge against her. Or, another example. Do you remember that Damon Albarn scandal back in 2021 where he claimed that Taylor didn't write her own songs? Just in case you don't, the Blur frontman said, that doesn't count. I know what co-writing is. Co-writing is very different from writing. I'm not hating on anybody. I'm just saying that there's a difference between a songwriter and a songwriter who co-writes. Doesn't mean it can't come out really great. Some of the greatest singers, Ella Fitzgerald never wrote a song in her life. When I sing, I have to close my eyes and just be there. I suppose I'm a traditionalist in that sense. An interesting songwriter is Billie Eilish and her brother. I'm more attracted to that than Taylor Swift. It's just darker, less endlessly upbeat. Way more minor and odd. I think she's exceptional. And Taylor responded to this saying, I was such a big fan of yours until you did this. I write all of my own songs. Your hot take is completely false and so damaging. You don't have to like my songs, but it's really fucked up to try and discredit my writing. Wow. I know that tone was like a little shitty, but I just want you to know that I've been making fun of Damon since the 90s, so most of my tweets are just about how the Gallagher brothers clear him completely. But I did see this one tweet where I referenced the Jeremy Strong profile scandal that happened around this time, and I tweeted, these producers coming forward to protect Taylor Swift has big Jessica Chastain. Aaron Sorkin doesn't have a Twitter, but he asked me to post this on his behalf energy. Just to neutralize the tone that I used when I read that Taylor quote, here's more of me making fun of Damon because it's just something I love to do as a proud Oasis fan. This time it was during the private jet fiasco where people were mad that Taylor was taking a private jet as though she could just fly commercial and that would not be a psychotic thing to do. So I took the co-writing quote, I rewrote it to fit the private jet fiasco, and I said, she doesn't use her own jet. I know the jet set life. Sharing your jet is different from hoarding it. I'm not hating on anybody, just saying there's a big difference between Taylor traveling exclusively via jet and her loaning it to the Bleachers boy. And then I did like a little tilde and I said, this is Damon as Taylor's PR guy. But that jet thing wouldn't go away and the environmentalists kept going at Taylor. So in July, in my never-ending war against Redditors, despite using Reddit for the Red Scare sub to try to sell my books to them because they're the only people damaged enough who I think might be a good readership, On July 28th, 2022, I tweeted, "Shout out to Redditors for finding new and unique ways to be annoying as fuck because this plane emissions thread is the perfect excuse for me to share this amazing mashup of Wiz Khalifa and Speak Now era Taylor Swift called Mean Planes. I want this remade for Speak Now TV." If you haven't checked out the mashup, pause this podcast and go find it. She didn't recreate it for Speak Now TV because, that would actually take effort in creating something new and finding a life in a past song that's different from just, monetizing your once greatness. And proving I'm no better than the dirtbag Redditors I hate, on August 6th, after Bob Odenkirk was found following a foot fetish Instagram account, I tweeted, "Bob Odenkirk did nothing wrong. All dudes are weird. You have no idea how many impassioned tweets I have in my drafts regarding Taylor Swift not receiving proper credit for her impact on the armpit community, as Dua and Liv exploit her blueprint without attribution." To pull back on being a total weirdo, I decided to do some song recommendations on August 18th, 2022, and I posted the blank white page cover that Taylor did, then commented, "I love the way Taylor covered Blank White Page." She said, "Not only is this my song now, but Carey Mulligan is my wife too." She left Mumford with nothing but his sons after this session. And around this time, I was working on a project of cataloging every Taylor song I had across all my years of fandom. So on August 23rd, 2022, I tweeted, "Remember 10 years ago how we all thought Taylor wrote a song called I'm All Right about Harry Styles and everyone traded the demo, but then it just turned out to be a 15-year-old Filipina girl who had listened to so much Taylor that she nailed every songwriting crutch to make the perfect facsimile?" If you haven't heard the song, go look up this tweet on @T_James Reagan, because I uploaded the song to my Google Drive, and I honestly hope that Taylor will cover it one day. She would never listen to this podcast, especially with how I started it, where I was just I'm the biggest fan of you, but also the worst. But later on, I will reveal how big of a fan I am of Matty Healy, because I see him as just like me for real, and so maybe she will also see the Matty Healy in me, and we will have this connection because she'll be like, "Oh, I know this type of boy. I know this. I'm not taking any of this seriously." But I do hope she records that song. It's awesome. I can't believe that it wasn't her and it was just some random girl in the Philippines. And things were peaceful in the Taylorverse for a while, until October 17th, 2022, when I ended a Twitter hiatus by saying, "As to the DMs I received while I was gone, I can confirm that I did have a small-scale mental breakdown when I passed on tickets to the VMAs that were happening across the street from my job, only to have Taylor announce Midnights there. I'm still grappling with this psychic pain. Now that I've heard Midnights, I've sort of gotten over it, but there is always that thing of I could have been there when Blondie told the world all about this album. The excitement that I felt and then everyone felt around me would have been just something to really experience as a Taylor Swift fan. So I do hold that regret somewhat in my heart. But to cope with the pain, I used my old crutch and went online and made fun of Joe Alwyn. So on October 21st, 2022, I tweeted a video of Taylor describing how she, quote-unquote, discovered Joe's talent, then added the commentary, "The way this deeply fake Taylor story talks about discovering Joe's incredible songwriting ability has all the same beats as this classic Beck Bennett sketch about how dumb a music cliche this is." Then I posted the Good Neighbor sketch where Kyle Mooney is singing to himself as he's doing laundry, and Beck, a record executive who happens to be in Kyle's house, overhears him, then signs him to a major label deal. Since this is a review of the new Taylor Swift album, I'm going to spare you the track-by-track review of Midnights that I posted on October 21st, 2022. You can find it. It's still on my Twitter page. And, all autumn, I stayed in my little bubble listening to Midnights and minding my own business until Oscar season came around. And then we had to do this thing where, we had to pretend that Taylor was competing for an Oscar. So on December 10th, 2022, I tweeted, "When they told Martin McDonagh about who he's going to have his director-on-director interview with, they were probably like, we have some good news and we have some bad news. And he's like, right, I'll take the bad news first. And they probably just said, the bad news is also the good news, and you'll be interviewing Taylor. I was fully focused on the awards chatter at this point, and on January 10th, 2023, I tweeted, if I was at the Golden Globes, I'd lean into them being a group of total perverts as my brand, and I'd award Ana de Armas, Austin Butler, Colin Farrell, Carrie Condon, Brad Pitt, Lily, I don't know which Lily that was. Lily Collins? Lily Collins couldn't have been up for a Golden Globe. Was this like an Emily in Paris thing again? Where we all had to be like, oh yeah, I'm sure Lily Collins is worthy of that Golden Globe, and not because they paid for everyone to go to Paris who can vote in a Golden Globe thing. I'm sure that's totally organic. Anyways, the list continues. Aubrey Plaza, Hilda Gutner, who did the score for Joker, and I don't know whatever other movie that came out in 2023 was. Elizabeth Debicki, Zendaya, Taylor, and then I had Margot and Anya Tai, and they give a speech together, and then I just wrote, cute. And then I ended the tweet by saying, no globes for uglies. And podcaster note, I understand that I am ugly, but I don't need to be pretty to make this statement because I don't have a Golden Globe, so I don't think it's hypocritical. If I was nominated for a Golden Globe, I would be like, too ugly. Give it to that cowboy guy that writes Yellowstone and is good looking. And I know that you're, at this point, we're probably like 20 minutes in and you're thinking like, hey, this is a review of the new Taylor Swift album, and we haven't even said the album's title, I don't think, yet. But just wait, there's a reason why I'm going through my tweets that only got one like, and that like is always from an OnlyFans bot who is advertising your nudes in bio. Because this is a milestone. On January 12th, 2023, Taylor Swift made a surprise appearance at the 1975's London gig at the O2, where she performed Anti-Hero for the first time and also covered the 1975's The City. This was a beautiful moment that gave me delusions that they would get together. It was something so precious to me. When it happened, I was like, I cannot do my usual fangirl tweet about this because I know that Taylor's fan base is incapable of imagining people complexly, and Matty is a pretty complex bloke. And to the point of Matty being complex, if you've never heard of Matty Healy before, don't Google him. Don't look him up. Don't look at his Wikipedia. Don't look at the news sites. Don't look at the album Tortured Poet stuff about him. What you do is you log into Spotify and you type in the 1975, and then you look for their self-titled debut, the 1975. Put it on and listen to each song. And I bet you'll like one of them. I bet you'll like more than one of them. I bet you'll come back to the album. And based on the song or songs that you like, I would be able to recommend the next album that you should listen to. But honestly, each album offers something of value. Each album I love. And my favorite album is their last album. What brought me back to the 1975 was that album, and specifically a concert that you can watch on Amazon Prime. And it's 1975 live at Madison Square Garden at their very best. And the concert takes place on a stage that's set up like a house. And it's the most comfortable arena tour setup I've ever seen in my entire life. It was one of those things where as soon as I watched that Amazon special, I had to go see it for myself. And to see the 1975 in a different way without that house, it would be a diminished experience. I'm telling you, watch this concert. There's something truly magical about that show. One of the greatest live performances I've ever seen. It's something that I'll put on as a comfort. I won't even turn the sound on sometime. I'll just put the visual of that house. There's always that tweet where it's like, she told me she knows a place, where the hell is this? And then you just put the 1975 house there, and it's like, that's me, where I know a place And then after you listen to the music, after you see that live show, you'll understand Matty way better than any other clickbaity little Wikipedia summary, Swifty tweet piece of information that you'll get on the guy. But I'm also not saying that like, oh, you have to avoid everything outside the music. You don't. There's this fantastic interview that I highly recommend. And the exact name of the interview is the 1975 Being Funny in a Foreign Language interview / Apple Music. It's 1 hour and 8 minutes long, and it's from October 2022. Watch that interview, and you'll come away with a man who, like I said, Matty is a complex bloke, but there are touching moments in that interview. There's one point where Matty's talking about, there was this guy who at a concert that they were at where he was stepping on beer cans and then he was like throwing them like ninja stars. And so George, one of Matty's bandmates in the 1975, hopped over to the divide and then rushed this guy who was throwing those ninja stars. And Matty talks about, he's never had a relationship like that before. He's never been able to rely on something like that. And he says, if someone was to pull out a gun, it would just be a question of who would get in the way first. And he gets choked up when he says that. And he's like, oh, sorry, I got a little bit choked up there. But you can tell, that he's not making Taylor versions. What he's doing on that stage is incredibly from the heart. And it's to connect with people. And it's with his best friends. There's a final song on one of the 1975 records where he just does a tribute to his band. And then you see it again where that concert, my favorite moment, my absolute favorite moment of this concert is there's a song called When We Are Together. And Matty sits at the piano and plays it, but the entire band is playing along with it. And instead of giving the album version, he plays this song out on a continued stretching it longer and longer. And one by one, he introduces the members of his band, and each of them get a round of applause. The entire Madison Square Garden is cheering just for them. And they set down their instrument or they step away from the keyboard and they walk through that house and then they leave through the back door. It's like such a powerful experience. And it's one of those things that you could only think of being selfless to a degree. I mean, there's always the TikToks of like anytime George is like playing a solo or something like that, and Matty'll just find his way to like scoot in front of him and do the goofiest dance you've ever seen to like reclaim all of the attention. But George is not the guy that is demanding the attention either. So it's like a good ecosystem. Like George doesn't want this attention and Matty desperately needs it. Have you ever seen a YouTube short of two dogs and a guy's like holding out like a cheeseburger or something to them? And the first dog is like the big dog and he's like licking his lips, and then the camera moves to the second dog and it's this little dog and the dog is literally convulsing, and it says the big one wants it, the little one needs it. And that's like the dynamic of Matty and George as far as like what they demand from the stage. Or most of the guitar solos are done by his bandmate Adam, and Adam is one of those guys where it's like Matty talks so much that he paired up with Adam and Adam paired up with Matty, because they're like, you ever meet like a married couple where one of them is the life of the party and then the other one is like just stoic and almost like graceful or something like that in the ways that the life of the party guy isn't? There's a story of how Adam got in the 1975 where Adam didn't ask Matty like, hey, do you want to form a band? Adam asked his girlfriend to ask Matty if he wanted to be in a band together. So like that'll give you the idea of how Adam, is not looking for the spotlight, but Adam also understands Matty, that like if you send a girl to talk to Matty, you can you're going to get way farther of actually getting this band to happen if a girl's like, hey, I think you should start a band, instead of a guy being like, hey, do you want to be in a band? But anyways, that's my spiel on Matty, because this guy means the world to me. Like, you don't understand. If I had songwriting ability, I would be writing the tortured poets about Matty, but every song would be super complimentary. I'm such a dork. But I'm a middle-aged man doing a Taylor Swift podcast. So if you didn't realize that I'm a dork at that point, then, oh my gosh, you're probably a dork too. We deserve each other. But I just want you to do that homework, and it's not going to be homework because it's going to feel good. When you're done with it, you're going to have a picture of Matty that's going to seem incongruous with how he's discussed by Swifties and feminists. So when Taylor speaks of him how she does, decide who you want to trust. And back to Taylor. So I was working on this collection, and it was really fulfilling because I was getting these demo songs and these songs that she made when she was just a girl, and it was so striking that, like, you were listening to someone who's like a child, but there's an understanding of music that when Damon talks about the writing, it's such a silly thing that was underscored when I was doing this project, because she's been doing this for 30 years. Like, of course she's writing her songs. There were the pop demands where she wasn't in control of it as much before, where they said, like, Robin's really hip right now, we want you to get in the studio with Robin. But for her to be working that long and to think that, like, oh, she's still co-writing this music after all this time is absurd. And especially when the tone in it and the voice in it. You know, when I found my voice as a writer, people always say, you do so many different genres, but every time I read your book, I know that I'm reading a T. James Reagan book. And that's because I have a voice in there, and I have these little ticks, and I have my little slashes that I put in there, and I use way too many commas, and I'm never describing the room we're in because that's just so uninteresting to me. I just want the people who are in that room to engage with each other. And so there are all these tells. And as Taylor moves through genres, you know, as she goes from country, what y'all do? Y'all want to hear some music? You know, like fake accent, pretending she's from Nashville and she's from Pennsylvania type stuff. And then, you know, when she segues into that pop thing and the haters want to hate, that every time she remade herself, it wasn't a dramatic remake where Madonna has her eras that are very distinct. But Taylor, you know, when she can do an Eras tour and everything feels so cohesive because of her voice. And collecting these songs allowed me to understand that. And so on January 28th, 2023, I tweeted, I've officially collected and archived and tagged 398 songs in my Taylor Swift collection. I'm missing $10 in a six-pack, A Little More Like You, Halfway to Texas, Actin' Like a Boy, Her, Didn't They, Fall Back on You, Honey Baby, I Can See You, and then also Sweet Tea and God's Graces. Does anyone have them? And good news, and shout out to some Hispanic boy on Twitter who literally gave me all of them. Whoever or wherever you are, if you're listening to this, I hope your guitar lessons are going well, and I'll buy your debut album since you helped me complete my Taylor collection. And once I had all those songs, I would just put the shuffle on. And so you would hop through a woman's life. And with co-writers, you can't really do that either. There's not going to be one story that's told across all of time, where Taylor does have those one-offs, you know, like No Body, No Crime, or Anti-Hero in a lot of ways is a one-off as well, even though like, there's a reason why she chose Anti-Hero to have his live debut at a 1975 concert, where that in itself was an Easter egg, which in my delusional, being the Alex Jones of the Mailer community, and Mailer is Matty and Taylor, if you couldn't tell, being the Alex Jones of the Mailer community, I always knew that Anti-Hero was a statement, but everyone else is just like, that's the lead single from Midnight's. You're insane. Get off Matty Healy's dick. And I was like, I will get off it because Taylor needs to get on it and might already be. All right, well, it's only going to get weirder from here because now I get to talk about Olivia Rodrigo, who I am also obsessed with, where it's a very easy bridge to go from a Taylor Swift fan to Olivia Rodrigo fan, but then a little bit harder to sustain both of those fandoms, based on the behavior of one such blonde lady. But as the release began to loom for Olivia's album, and I had really been dismayed about Taylor's ability to accept that she had been overtaken in some ways as far as making deeply emotional pop music with mass appeal. On February 3rd, 2023, I tweeted, "The new conspiracy theory I'm pushing is that Liv is going to release OR2, and then I guess the title, Sweet, the same day as Speak Now TV, so as to establish herself as an adversary. Then she'll soon achieve every Taylor stand's ultimate goal of being woven into the Swiftian tapestry via scathing sonic rebuke." This never happened. It was just a delusion of mine. I mean, Olivia is smarter than me, so we can move on from there, but that's not the last time we'll be talking about her. On February 9th, 2023, I retweeted a video of Christian Bale being interviewed during the Blondie co-starring Amsterdam press tour, and he was talking about how his kids like Taylor, so I had to do the classic riff of, "Do you like Taylor Swift? She's okay. Her early work is a little too country for my taste, but when she started singing around that coffin in 2022's Amsterdam, I think she really came into her own, commercially and artistically." Shoutouts to Bret Easton Ellis. This is the one podcast where I'm not totally ripping you off. I think that's growth. On March 15th, 2023, all of my ticket money was going to these two dates to see Still at Their Very Best tour because I was like, I need to see the house again. I need to see the house again. That's the only place I feel at home. And so I wasn't able to go to the Eras tour, so I tweeted, "My only hope to see Taylor on this tour is if my dad calls me up like this." And then I posted the scene from Mad Men where Don gets Sally tickets to see the Beatles. But at this point, I was deep in my hyperfixation again. So on March 19th, 2023, I tweeted, "Taylor doing State of Grace on the piano sounds great, but the whole adrenaline of You Were Never a Saint and I Loved in Shades of Wrong needs a band backing for a peak experience." And I stand by this. I think you need a band to do the masterpiece that is State of Grace. 5 days later, I retweeted an Entertainment Tonight tweet from March 24th, 2023 that read, "Gwyneth Paltrow is questioned about her relationship to Taylor Swift as she takes the stand to share her side of an alleged Utah ski crash she's being sued for." Then I responded by including a crudely MS-painted picture of Jessica Seinfeld dapping up Gwyneth Paltrow with the superimposed text, "Friendship ended with Taylor Swift. Now Jessica Seinfeld is my best friend." And above it I wrote, "Gwyneth denied that Taylor Swift was a twin from her dreams and instead classified her as a crook who was caught." If you really know who that lyric that I referenced was about, then you'll probably like my April 10th tweet from 2023 that merely just read, "I want Taylor to date Alana Haim next." If you don't know who that lyric's about, then I guess it's time to teach you about the Gaylors. The Gaylors are a splinter cell of Taylor Swift fans who believe that Taylor Swift has been sending coded messages through her songs. And maybe to that you say, "Well, that's obvious, Tommy. That's her trademark." Well, they believe the coded messages are about Taylor Swift being a lesbian. The Gaylor movement culminated with Tay's grand romance with Karlie Kloss in that cringe Lover era where she would just have drag queens show up for a song. There was no reason for them to be there. She'd just be like, "And now here's some drag queens." And then that was that. Later in my tweets, you'll see that Miss Swift has a lot to say about these Gaylors. This is a perfect segue to May 11th, 2023, where at this point I was the president of the Mailer fan club and I was genuinely psychotic because my favorite female artist, Taylor Swift, was dating my favorite male artist, Matty Healy. I mean, can you imagine the thrill? We were finally certain of the relationship. All the speculation that had begun years ago but ramped up when Taylor performed at the O2, now we were certain that they were official. On this particular day in May, I tweeted a video because Maddie and Cillian Murphy were both at her concert. And at the time, I didn't hate Cillian Murphy as much as I do now. See my Maestro podcast for additional information. But I tweeted Unless my eyes deceive me, does this video show that Taylor has Cillian Murphy showing up at her concert and she's not curving Matty for him? Maybe she's scared she'll recreate the cringe of London Boy with a Mick. She's right to resist those blue eyes. The Irish have suffered enough. Basically, I was just trying to show that Cillian Murphy showed up and Taylor didn't even bat an eye at that. She didn't try to steal Cillian from, his potato farmer ass wife, like just went right on through it. No Ariana Grandeing to be seen at all. So this made me even more secure in her relationship with Matty. And so on May 13th, 2023, I followed the Taylor Swift subreddit to keep up with Mailer because I wanted every piece of little tiny information that I could get. But then I promptly unfollowed after the Adam Friedland episode where the whole sub devolved into mass psychosis. And so on May 13th, I was just like, I'm addicted to reading posts from Swifties utterly divorced from reality, because that's what the entire subreddit had become. There was a psychological disconnect for all these women where they were like protective, but then also, when like an ugly woman has a beautiful friend and the beautiful friend has a cool boyfriend, the ugly woman will do anything to destroy it. This sort of set off a powder keg. And the powder keg is the Adam Friedland show. And if you have a question about that show, you can go on YouTube and watch it in full. I'm not going to recount it here because recounting something that happens on a Nick Mullen podcast is like reading a court transcript of your porn search history after you just came. Like the heat of the moment is removed from it and you're just left with inflectionless details and you're like, oh man, I should be put down for enjoying this. But when you're actually experiencing it, it's so enjoyable. I mean, give the episode a listen, and even if you hate it, you can just rest assured that you will never hate Nick Mullen more than Nick Mullen hates himself. Like every day that Nick Mullen's beautiful brain remains encased in his skull and not painted across his bedroom wall of his apartment is honestly a miracle. He does not like himself. He does not like the Adam Friedland show. So if you dislike his show, he's not going to disagree with you. He also dislikes the show. Sometimes he'll just read his phone for 30 minutes while doing the show. He's like, later on in my actual review, yes, I will actually review Tortured Poets Department, but later on in that review, how Joe Alwyn is painted as like a checked out doorstop, that's how Nick Mullen is like 50% of these episodes, but then the other 50% of the time, it's the funniest riffing that you will hear. And so you need to understand the context of all of that. And for me to say the thing that Matty got in trouble for is in the cold light of day while, describing what you were doing while you were drunk the night before, it just doesn't work. So go and listen to the episode. And by the end, you aren't going to be outraged. And if you are outraged, then you aren't a listener of this podcast. Like, you've turned this podcast off way earlier and in an earlier episode too. This is like the 8th episode or something I've done. There's no way you've made it this far. You've just stumbled upon this accidentally because you thought I was going to be like the breathtaking allusions to Catherine from mythology is stunning and has not been seen from in all of creation except for maybe Bob Dylan's Mother of Muses. There's not going to be any of that when we get to my review either. I'm going to review it as someone who's listened to every single Taylor Swift song and cataloged every single Taylor Swift song and is like, begging Mexican boys for alternate versions of Taylor Swift songs. So that's where my review is going to come from. But anyways, the tweets kept coming and Eras Tour mania had hit at this point, and it arrived in my home state of New Jersey on May 26, 2023, when I tweeted, Jack Antonoff started his song Wild at Heart with, "They closed the Parkway late last night," and now there are signs all along the Parkway about delays Taylor is going to cause this weekend, combined with the influx of people from Memorial Day weekend. So I'm proposing a Bleachers concert on the shoulder of the Parkway at exit 153A. Needless to say, Jack Antonoff did not take me up on this offer, and he did not, as of yet, perform on the shoulder of the Parkway. But there's still time, Jack. If you're hearing, Jack might be the one who actually does listen to this. because he is the Matty Healy Taylor Swift bridge where he's signed to Dirty Hit, which is Matty's label, but then he's also doing all these songs with Taylor. So you can't shatter either of these professional relationships. And so I think Jack Antonoff is the target audience for this, except for I think I tweeted about possibly crashing his wedding, like in Wayne's World where like Wayne comes and he's like banging on the plexiglass in the church like, I object. I might have referenced that in one of my tweets here, so let me just look at the notes I took. Well, on May 30th, 2023, I was becoming unglued regarding the evil Swifties relationship sabotage that was in full swing, cratering Mailer, so I tweeted, I can't wait until Taylor's internal polls show that she needs to regain the most deeply mentally ill portion of her fan base to sustain her current vinyl sales, so she's forced into a 4-month-long throuple with Tattoo that comes to an end when the ment ills hear that the Red Scare intro features them. So as you can hear, I was in full war with the Swifties at this point. They were destroying something beautiful because they are not. June arrived, and the disgusting Swifties had won. Tree Payne was going into overdrive, culminating in her putting together a Karma remix, which was nothing more than a trumpetous butt fart of ass intended on appeasing progressives because a comedian attempted humor. Oh, and watch Nick Mullen's Year of the Dragon on YouTube. Great special. And so I took it bad. And in June, on June 6th, I was coping hard. I was staying up until 3 a.m., drinking Bud Light Limes, eating cheese and cracker plates. I tweeted a picture of Matty and Dasha from Red Scare and added the caption, the way Dasha is going to be Matty Healy's Matty Healy rebound hookup after imploding his chance with Taylor is almost too poetic. 4D chess by Dasha, women be plottin'. To this, an individual with questionable gender in an Otessa Moshfegh profile picture tweeted me a question. Who is this? And I responded, if you mean who's the gal in the picture, that is popular girl about town Dasha Nekrasova. Here are some pictures of her so that you can be blown away by her beauty. Then I included 4 pictures of sweet baby Dasha. The person then asked me, is she friends with Matty? Is she a singer? To which I quoted Houellebecq saying, Dasha Nekrasova embodies the type of human that, unfortunately, lacks an equivalent in France, that of the funny, sexy, young Catholic conservative woman. And then this part is me, where I noted, sadly, they do not let her sing because of her disability, and then in parentheses I put, vocal fry. And then the conversation ended with the person declaring, ew, conservative. Then they added a green holding in puke emoji. On June 15th, I end up quoting something from someone called Swifted Backup, which is definitely one of those Swifties so profoundly mentally ill that they need a backup account because of what they tweet, but they are a Taylor Swift fan account, so what type of bannable offenses are you talking about? But somehow Swifties find them, so sure enough, the post is no longer available, but I responded to whatever was posted with, if this happens, the only valid way to end the Cruel Summer video is for Taylor to show up at the OR2 studios and hand Olivia back the Deja Vu publishing rights because what she and Haley pulled was senior girls bullying the freshman girl type shit. I was lashing out at Swifties, and on June 19th, 2023, I memorialized the end of the Mailer relationship that I cared so deeply about by saying, Taylor is never told no about anything in her life, and a certain section of her fan base going mental is what forced her to publicly end her relationship. And this rendered Matty the one thing she can't have, and a taboo. And this essentially created the ideal figure for her to lust after interminably. This tweet, essentially, is an outline of the concept of the Tortured Poets Department before I even knew it existed. I was pretty bitter at Blondie during this point, so on July 11th, 2023, I retweeted All the Right Moves, who posted a video of the original cast of Ghostbusters trying out alternate titles, and I captioned it, Taylor and her engineer in the studio anytime they come upon a remotely interesting lyric in her back catalog and they have to find the dumbest possible option to replace it with. By July 14th, 2023, literally no one would talk to me about Taylor Swift because I was a hardcore mailer truther at this point, and I declared, I've effectively pushed away any Swiftie who will normally talk to me about Taylor due to me being ravenously convinced that Matty and Taylor will fall in love with each other their whole lives. So, unfortunately for you, non-Swifties, you have to read my Speak Now TV rant because no one else will. And then I reviewed every single track of Speak Now, Taylor's version. But as you know, I was not a fan of Taylor's version. And at that point, I wasn't very high on Taylor Swift either. I mean, I had lost my mind. Like, on August 12th, 2023, a user account named queen.taylor.swifty posted that there was a rip in one of Taylor's rep outfits, the black one with the red snakes, and the rip was in the armpit. So, obviously, as a mentally normal person, I responded, this anti-Taylor Swift armpit sentiment tells me that some of you don't know the lore. Back before Dua Lipa, ... And then, all right, here's the Wayne's World situation. And Jack Antonoff, like Jersey's golden boy that he is, was marrying the queen of my heart, Margaret Qualley. So on August 18th, 2023, I tweeted, I've received more texts about Taylor being in New Jersey than I received happy birthdays last year. Half of the texts ask me if I'm going to try to be Taylor's +1, and the other half are about if I'm going to object to the wedding in a last-ditch effort to woo Margaret Qualley. In the end, I was not able to get close to Margaret Qualley's wedding, and so now I guess she's Margaret Antonoff, which I don't mind, because we got that tiniest moves you make video where she's just dancing and she seems so happy. And like, if I've watched every Margaret Qualley interview and she has this really infectious laugh, and she's always talking about, you know, like if she wasn't an actress, she would be a dancer or teach dancing. And I see her as like a Frances Ha type girl if she was never an actress. And there's like something so heartwarming about her. And so her and Jack being together, I genuinely support that. Not in the way I supported Mailer to that extreme, but maybe that will give their relationship a chance to last more than 3 months. Like the relationship that I'm still psychotically obsessed with. I mean, are you gearing up to understand how important this Tortured Poets Department album is for me? I was in this shit. This was my nom. I mean, one would think I'd be over this phase by September, but one would be very, very wrong, because on September 9th, I quote tweeted a user called Blessed Swifty who said, Taylor Swift is reportedly set to release Lego sets for the Lover House and Eras Tour, to which I normally responded, what if your Taylor Lego and my Matty Lego kissed in my still at their very best 1975 Lego house? Then we went to your Lover Lego house and spent the night together. I oscillated between those type of jokes and also blinding Mailer rage, and Olivia Rodrigo has never hurt me my entire life, so on September 12th, 2023, I tweeted, they can't stop comparing her to other girls. Who else's Rolling Stone profile as a bizarre looming presence of Katy Perry? Because they both use the term teenage dream. Like, why the fuck are we discussing Dua Lipa when it comes to Olivia Rodrigo? And of course, they're asking about Taylor again, when Taylor will take any answer Olivia gives and weaponize it against her. Then I followed it up with, oh my gosh, Livy made it through an entire release weekend for Guts without Blondie announcing something that would suck up all the oxygen in the room. Olivia really waited until Taylor girl-bossed herself into total exhaustion to be like, hi guys, Guts is here. And then I wrote, we love our little snake charmer. And rest assured, I was still unhinged by Maddie's breakup and on the side of the Gaylors now at this point, because you know how, like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And on September 13th, 2023, I tweeted a picture of Carly Kloss in a menswear tuxedo type thing. And I said, Carly saw Taylor as dating again, and she had to do the most gay-coded thing she could think of. And then in parentheses, I put dressing up in a boy genius Halloween costume. And it didn't help matters at this point because the re-recording grift continued, and on September 20th, 2023, Taylor's team tweeted, it's a new soundtrack. Here are the back covers and vault track titles for 1989, parentheses, my version. I can't wait for this one to be out. Seriously. I need your money. I need more of your money. Please give me money. And think about that bad man. Maybe it was Scooter Braun or Big Machine. They took my money. Poor little Taylor took my money and my publishing. Here's an inferior version of... All right, they didn't tweet that out. They just said, thank you for playing along, sleuthing and puzzling, making these reveals more chaotic fun, which is the best kind of fun. After all, winky face with tongue out. To which I responded, no 75 on 89, more anti-intimacy Blondie behavior. She would have made such a lovely bride. What a shame she's fucked in the head. So yeah, handled that maturely. It's sort of in the way that I got mean-spirited just now reading that. I felt like I was being mean-spirited on Twitter too. So to put some positivity into the Taylor sphere, on October 8th, 2023, I tweeted, Taylor's best album opener is State of Grace. Taylor's best title track is Red. Taylor's best track 5 is Tolerate It. Taylor's best track 2 is Sparks Fly. Taylor's best collab is The Alcott. Taylor's best album closer is Evermore. And Taylor's best album is Speak Now 2010. So, see, I'm a nice guy again. But then the positivity on my part was short-lived, because on October 26, 2023, the liner notes to 1989 TV came out, and I tweeted them along with my statement. As president of the Mailers, I'd like to offer my thoughts and prayers to the Gaylers. I know what it's like to have Blondie take your dreams away. This past June, when Tay ditched Matty, the Mailers were in mourning, and now we're here to support the Gaylers in this difficult time. The note that Taylor wrote in the liner notes was, it became clear to me that there was no such thing as casual dating, or even having a male friend who you platonically hang out with. If I was seen with him, it was assumed I was sleeping with him. And so I swore off hanging out with guys, dating, flirting, or anything that could be weaponized against me by a culture that claimed to believe in liberating women, but constantly treated me with the harsh moral codes of the Victorian era. Being a consummate optimist, I assumed I could fix this if I simply changed my behavior. I swore off dating and decided to focus on myself, my music, my growth, and my female friends. People couldn't sensationalize or sexualize that, right? I would learn, later on, that people could, and people would. This was the death blow to the Gaylers, and as the Mailers were in mourning, so too were the Gaylers. I ended my 1989 Taylor version review, where I tweeted every single remade song, and then I posted a picture of Matty and Taylor, and they're leaving the studio together. And I declared, notice, I did not review the vault tracks, and this is a boycott due to Blondie acting like this never happened. You gave in to your fat, asexual, lonely fans instead of paying tribute to the boy who had been in love with you for ages but couldn't seem to get it right. This was due to the fact that, also, in those leaked liner notes, was a writing credit for Matty for the song Slut. I mean, in retrospect, I'm glad that he didn't end up with the credit in the long term, because that song sucks balls. And it would honestly tinge Matty's discography. It would be a Greta intro level mistake to have it added there. So in Taylor's discography, it's just another brick in the wall. But for Matty, it would have been pretty devastating if Slut was like actually a thing he created. 2023, Taylor was named Time Person of the Year, and I posted the cover featuring Taylor in a purple-gray sleeveless sequin top, arms raised. Then I noted it was a milestone day at the Taylor Swift armpit subreddit. Even at her peak, Taylor continues to give back to the community, I noted. I just couldn't quit those armpits. Blondie, in a post-breakup mode, decided to do her squad goals shit again. And since I'm president and CEO of the Girl Just Log Off coalition, where we spread the idea that Selena Gomez needs her social media accounts taken away by the government, on December 9th, 2023, I posted a picture of Anya Taylor-Joy, joined by Taylor, Selena Gomez, and Cara Delevingne, and tweeted, "Bipolar pop star organizes the Taylor Summit we've been demanding ever since Amsterdam flopped." As you can imagine, Taylor isn't my only Taylor. I also stand for Anya. Oh, and I also stand hard for my little French boy, Timothée Chalamet. So on January 7th, 2024, there was some awards show, probably like the Golden Globes again, and I tweeted a prayer circle manifesting a Taylor and Timothy pick. My prayers were not answered, but God, I get it. You have a lot on your plate, and if you did prioritize that prayer, it would be at the expense of perhaps a more needful divine request. It's okay I didn't get my picture. I'll survive. On February 3rd, 2024, I was down bad for a girl and listening to You're Losing Me over and over again, so I tweeted, remember when Taylor gave this song only to New Jersey because we were yearning too hard last summer? The next award show was the Grammys, where my sweet tiny baby Olivia Rodrigo performed, so I tweeted on February 4th, I knew they were going to be shady and cut to Taylor in the middle of that performance, but at least she was dancing and actually supporting Olivia. Was that so hard, Blondie? I didn't say anything about the Tortured Poets Department reveal on stage that night, and if you want to know why, just look at what I tweeted as soon as I woke up on February 5th, 2024. All right. This is embarrassing, but I spent the first hour of my day in Photoshop, photoshopping Matty Healy's face onto Jack Antonoff's body in a picture of him on stage with Taylor when they won the Grammy, and I wrote, wow, I can't believe Taylor did that. She really dragged the love of her life, Matty Healy, up on stage to rightfully give him the Album of the Year Grammy for being funny in a foreign language. This is what should have happened. When I went to the At Their Very Best in Madison Square Garden, Matty went on this hilarious rant where at first he started out with, I really envy Kanye West. And this was, pre-October 7th. And so everyone was like, oh, boo. Like he was doing that in New York. And then he just segued into, brutal verbal beatdown of the Grammys for not nominating Being Funny, where I would argue, technically, Being Funny was nominated because Jack Antonoff won Producer of the Year. Didn't thank Matty. Thanks a lot, Jack. You're the only guy who I think would be on my side here. And I still keep finding ways to shit talk you. It's incredible. But hey, all right, I'm going to win you back. I recently did my Last FM 200,000 listens, where I've listened to 200,000 songs. And my number one song during that time was Now Is the Hour. And when did Now Is the Hour come out? You released that thing like 5 months ago or whatever. And it was my number one song. So obviously I am a Jack Antonoff fan. So have I won you back yet? Have you paused it? Have you turned this off yet? Are you going to use your New Jersey mob connections to get me evicted from my apartment? Have mercy on me, Jack Antonoff. I'll see you at the Stone Pony. At this point in the year, it was peak Taylor content because on February 10th, 2024, I tweeted, I can't wait to see Blondie at the game tomorrow. To have my Sunday ritual interspersed with Taylor this year felt like the universe was catering to me. The Chiefs won't win, but Blondie is so skilled at articulating the personal pain of loss that it's almost better for her that way. Then I actually watched the Super Bowl, because if you've listened to my other podcasts, you know how obsessed I can get about that shit, and I didn't tweet until the writing was on the wall regarding the game, so on February 11th I said, this is how you lose. Mahomes is never more comfortable than in this situation. I'm happy for Taylor. Since overtime was certain, I tweeted, here's how Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber can still perform between the fourth quarter and overtime, since I'm also a stan for Justin. I needed to pick up my spirits after that Chiefs Super Bowl win, so on February 12th, I tweeted a picture with her arm up, cheering on her boyfriend, and I added the commentary, wow, the most trusted name in news, CNN, just reported that Taylor is going to get a Super Bowl ring too after Commissioner Roger Goodell named her MVP, and then in parentheses I put, most valuable pits of Super Bowl 56. The Time magazine cover was only the beginning. She's lucky Dua didn't play the halftime show, though. I know you're saying, Tommy, just get to the album review and quit being weird and perverted. And even I agree with you because, all right, this year on February 29th, I wrote, I'm going to see how many days into March I can go without mentioning either Taylor Swift or Matty Healy. No promises on Olivia Rodrigo, though. We're reaching levels of baby girl never thought possible. And I did stick to that promise, but it was because I was sober the entire month of March, and almost all the tweets I'm reading here are from when I'm like 2 a.m. blackout drunk. So maybe it wasn't the biggest victory I've had as far as keeping Taylor's name out my mouth. My most recent non-Poets adjacent tweet was on April 15th, where I defended Taylor's honor for my girl Courtney Love, who was right about her Lana take, her Beyonce take, her Debbie Harry take, the failing Rolling Stone and Jan Winter take, but I stood up against the PJ Harvey take, which I found incorrect, and I also stood up for the Taylor slander. And so that, with the oral history of my tweets, is where I stand on Taylor. As you can see, I have a lot of feelings about her all the time, to the point that I had to record this podcast because I always hemorrhage Twitter followers anytime I go too deep on my hyperfixations. Ah yes, my hyperfixations. For full disclosure, if you've met me, you already know this, or if you followed me on Tumblr in 2013, you already know this, or if you follow me on Twitter, you know this, but I am full-on obsessed with Matty Healy. You know how people will post Ryan Gosling pictures and say, he just like me, FR? Well, Matty Healy is my Ryan Gosling. He's just like me, for real. And for further disclosure, as you can kind of tell for the fact that I'm directly speaking to him on the delusion that he's listening to this, I'm obsessed with Jack Antonoff because he's the Bruce Springsteen of my generation. New Jersey has so little to be proud of that the fact we have Jack is one of those points of pride. And even before Taylor, like, Jack wrote this song called Bullet, and it's covered by his high school girlfriend. You might be familiar with her, Scarlett Johansson. And that Bullet cover is probably one of my 10 favorite songs of all time. Like that, if I put that on, I just close my eyes and for 4 minutes, life is perfect. I mean, if you've read my lesbian novel, Pushing Closer, you sort of understand I have a bit of a Scarlett thing too. And as I was saying, on my website, you'll see that I did that post about my Last FM 200,000 listens. And if you look at the album that I've listened to, I think the fifth most times is Boxer by The National. I was listening to it when I was writing, and Swifties, cover your ears for a moment, when I was writing this novel, Empire Waste. And Empire Waste was inspired a lot by Bret Easton Ellis's Imperial Bedrooms, and then also the soundtrack to it was Boxer. So I was listening to Boxer because there was this mood, like sadness, but passion, but darkness, but obsession. All of that went into writing Empire Waste. And all right, Swifties, uncover your ears. And so because I was such a fan of Boxer, the idea that Aaron Dessner was also working on Tortured Poets, that was my dream. And so all this is to say that I'm the type of person that the Tortured Poets department was made for. I mean, not to do another He Just Like Me for real, but check my fucking resume. I literally am a tortured poet. Like, that's how I'm going to be described when my death is reported on. I mean, either that or like lone wolf. We'll see how it ends up. And great. Now I'm on the list of whatever Taylor Swift's version of Mossad is. And so reviewing this album, I guess, won't hurt. But, I mean, it will hurt. It will hurt because it hurt me so fucking bad that my Taylor and my Matty were in love. They were in love. They got on stage. You know, one would be on stage, one would be in the crowd. They would say, I love you to each other. That means something. I don't know if I can review this album. I don't know if I can go back to that world that felt so good and then felt so bad. And these songs took me right back there. All of my conspiracies actually came true when Taylor and Matty got together. And then again, all of my conspiracies were proved true when this album dropped. So many tracks were about Matty, and so many tracks were about how bad she wanted that relationship. And I don't know. You know what? Hold on. All right, and we are back. Do you hear that? That is the sound of my writing fuel, a Bud Light Lime. It makes all the demons go away temporarily, but then come back worse the next day when you get this weird anxiety and you just become super hopeless and you're just walking around the apartment like you're Joe Alwyn, just totally out of it, just a doorstop of a person. But all right, let's have a sip here. Oh, that's good. That is so good. Nothing's ever been better. We're back in business, baby. All right. If you look at the history of this podcast, you'll know that I've never reviewed someone that I don't have a deep, profound love for. It was Bradley Cooper. It was Bret Easton Ellis. It was Brian Fuller. It was Damien Chazelle. It was Shia LaBeouf. It was Sofia Coppola. These are my people. You don't fuck with them, or you'll hear from me. So, if I'm critical of particular moments in their work, it's merely my own feelings regarding the art created by someone I love. I've never panned anything on here. I might have pointed out moments that are Lady Fei Zhu, and there are people who gave me shit for that, but it's a truth that I know based on a deep respect for their work. And I've read so many reviews of my own Swifties Cover Your Ears novels, okay, Uncover Your Ears, Swifties, that I'm able to understand that, like, once you hit a certain point of criticism, it doesn't take the thing away. And the thing is the thing. And the more art you make, the more important the thing becomes and the less important the reactions become. Like, it's great when you get a 5-star review on Amazon. It feels awesome for a second. And then when you're first starting out and you get a 1-star review, it feels terrible for days. Every time you go back to that page, you'll scroll down to that 1-star review to be like, this motherfucker, he actually knew what was going on. He saw through the facade. But after a while, like, I think it helps because as you get older, you like people less. You've met such a large subsection of people that it's just very easy to be like, it's 70% of this world. I could do without it. And so you just say that was a 70%er review right there. And I'm probably a 70% to Taylor. So I understand that this will roll off her bad postured back. Oh, why did I do that? Let me have another. I'm going to drink a little more here. Okay, I can feel myself getting nicer. I'm one of those type drunks. And basically, I just want you to know that if I'm unkind about these songs, this isn't me like slapping the artist. It's the equivalent of being at dinner with your soulmate and they pass you the clams they ordered and you try one and you're like, that tasted off. And they're like, actually, I think they're delicious. And, they're your clams and I love you, so I'm happy about the entire situation. The clam didn't taste great for me, but it's not going to ruin my night. And that's the thing, like, before I took that last sip, you'll notice that my sense of humor always bends toward the cruel. I do admit that. I'm addicted to causing outrage in the type of woman that commonly identifies as an activist, protester, or Swiftie, but there's no true hatred at play. When I'm causing outrage in an activist, it's not because I hate them, it's because they're really fun to cause outrage in. And it's like, have you ever seen like a monkey pull a cat's tail and then just sort of like swing away on the branches and know that they might get the claws, but trying not to get them is the fun part of it? That's what this is. And so there might be a couple songs where you disagree with me, but it's just me pulling your tail. And I'm going to review all 31 tracks, and I'm going to be totally honest. But I mean, honestly, no one wants to witness someone sucking 37 dicks in a row. So it's better this way. To start, let's get some details about the project first. The Tortured Poets Department, the anthology, hereby referred to as Tortured Poets, is Taylor Swift's 11th studio album. It released on April 19th, 2024. Swift's prior album was a commercial success called Midnights, which I think many would regard as one of her less interesting albums sonically and thematically. Perhaps following in the footsteps of another Jack Antonoff-produced record, Solar Power, Taylor chose to make the best song off Midnight's, You're Losing Me, a bonus track that, coincidentally enough, was originally only available on copies of Midnight sold at MetLife Stadium in, where else, but the Garden State. Taylor literally looked at us and saw real yearners, so she gave us that gift. Tortured Poets was mostly recorded during downtime from the Eras Tour, Swift's record-breaking tour that spanned the globe and filled once empty AMCs throughout America was when she was recording these songs. She was also recording them during the Mailer era. The title of the album was a rumored reference to Joe Alwyn's WhatsApp group chat with other actors who seem like huge pussies who date domineering women, like Paul Mescal who got cucked by Phoebe Bridgers. Their group was called the Tortured Men's Club. I'm sure Bo Burnham's invite will be sent any day now, assuming Bo doesn't self-end before the inevitable breakup on schedule for whenever Phoebe gets distracted. The first time that Taylor's team used her X account in 2024 was to post on February 4th, All's Fair in Love and Poetry. New album, The Tortured Poets Department. Out April 19th. Then she posted either a gray heart or a white heart. I guess your interpretation probably says a lot about your demeanor, but to me, it looks like a gray heart. There were 2 photos included. One of Taylor lying on a white bed on the cushion of pillows in her black sheer top and black shorts, of course covering her belly button. One of the straps on the top is slightly down and her hand is close to but not touching her pussy. Her face is bisected with only the nose and mouth visible, as though she's on the cover of an early aughts YA novel. The general YA novel vibe makes the idea that there's implied masturbation on this cover some sort of porn-sick delusion, so obviously, T. James Reagan sees absolutely no sexual implications to this photograph. I mean, let women bed rot without sexualizing them. The second photograph features an open file folder, and in handwriting that doesn't look like Taylor's, written on an embossed off-white piece of paper, is the following. And so, I enter into evidence my tarnished coat of arms, my muses acquired like bruises, my talisman and charms, the tick, tick, tick of love bombs, my veins of pitch-black ink. Then, in the embossed portion, the following is written. All's fair in love and poetry, sincerely, the chairman of the Tortured Poets Department. On her Twitter account at 12:02 a.m. on April 19th, 2024, Taylor, let's be honest, it was her social media manager, posted on X, The Tortured Poets Department, an anthology of new works that reflect events, opinions, and sentiments from a fleeting and fatalistic moment in time, one that was both sensational and sorrowful in equal measure. This period of the author's life is now over, the chapter closed and boarded up. There is nothing to avenge, no scores to settle once wounds have healed. Upon further reflection, a good number of them turned out to be self-inflicted. The writer is of firm belief that our tears become wholly in the form of ink on a page. Once we have spoken our saddest story, we can be free of it. There's a line gap before adding, and then all that's left behind is the tortured poetry. I relate to all of that. It absolutely is the truth. Like, if you're a girl right now you're dealing with something and it's spinning in your head, you can't avoid it. Every waking moment of downtime that you're not swiping through a reel, it's just playing back over and over again on loop like your favorite song, but it's a song you don't want to listen to, then write it down. And you don't need a form for it at first. You need to just get it on paper, and it will find its form. A lot of times, what I do is, if there's something that, I call it a pillow thought, where it's one of those things that I'll return to in bed. I listen to a bit of a podcast, and then I pull my headphones out of my phone, and the podcast stops playing. And then there's that like pillow time between when I finish listening to whatever I'm listening to and that I actually fall asleep. And there's that pillow thought. And they keep finding their ways in there. And the pillow thought isn't a artistically interesting thought. But what I do is I combine that with another thought. And so, Swifties, cover your ears. When I was really worried that I was going to be laid off from my job, I would think about it over and over in my head, and it was totally out of my control. And there would be these periodic layoffs that would happen, and I would be spared, but all it would do is confirm for me that it was an entirely possible situation. And I have no idea how I'd react to that because I've worked at the same place for 14 years. So to be laid off would upend my life in a way that it hasn't been upended in a very long time. And so I had that idea that I was fixated on. And then I also had something that made me really mad, where you remember how I told you I'm like obsessed with Scarlett Johansson? Well, around this time, Scarlett Johansson signed on to do a movie, and she was like going to play a trans character. And all of the gender goblins like came out of the woodwork to protest this and say it's unacceptable and blah, blah, blah. And like everyone who knows how Hollywood works knows that the reason why Scarlett took that job is to tell a story that is not being told in Hollywood. And the reason why that movie is going to get made is because Scarlett took that job. So if you want representation, you have to take it how it comes. Everything can't be 100% perfect all the time, especially in Hollywood where so much money's involved. And this made me furious because I already disliked these Twitter people, and then the way that they once again denied reality so that it can fit their skewed worldview made me so angry. And so I took that ruminating pillow thought about the layoff, and I took this Scarlett Johansson isn't allowed to play anything except for like whatever your dumb terms are for it now, cis white female, or I don't, can a female be cis? I don't even understand any of that stuff. But I took those two ideas together and I said, all right, I have a middle-aged woman who gets laid off from her job. How does she react to this? And so I went through all of the ways she could react to it. And the way the character that I was writing reacted was she left her husband and she had to find some place to stay and start over again. And so she started over in a town that her best friend lived in. And the sort of idea was that she didn't have her best friend by her side. So as she remade herself, she would be in the same vicinity as her best friend. And she didn't have anywhere to stay. So she looked up on Facebook and she saw this ad for a loft, and one of the rooms was for rent. And so she applied for the room, and she ends up meeting this woman Tuesday, who is the woman who's renting out the room. And Tuesday is sort of like this eccentric, she's the type of person that you want in a party where, she might spill wine, but then she'll also make it funny instead of annoying, and she'll try to clean up the carpet, and then she'll end up buying you a new carpet like a week later and then showing up at your apartment, and then she'll spill wine on that one too. Like just one of those people. I looked at Tuesday a lot like, how I loved Diane Keaton, where Diane Keaton would go on what's that guy's name before Letterman? Johnny Carson. She'd go on Johnny Carson and she would be so cute and she would be like nervous and she'd be having a tough time getting through it. But like Johnny would love that because Diane Keaton isn't showing up to sell whatever she's in. She's showing up to be Diane Keaton. And so it's so likable. And as my main character was staying with Tuesday, she started slowly getting fixated with Tuesday. And they ended up doing a Thanksgiving at their loft, and Tuesday invites all her friends from work, and one of the people she invites is this woman who my main character ends up really connecting with in that unique way where they're at a moment where they both almost like need a piece of each other. And then it hit me that this girl that my main character is meeting, her name's going to be Scarlett. And what I was writing was, if we were going to make a movie, I'm going to write a movie about a lesbian, straight up lesbian, not bisexual, straight up lesbian. And the only possible person you could cast in that is Scarlett Johansson. Instead of like writing mean tweets to the gender goblins, I was writing this story of like, all right, I'm going to prove them wrong this way by making a story that is very kind, not exploitative or male gazy or anything like that. And then the fuel of it is going to be, if I do get laid off, I'll at least have this main character who will go on a journey and show me that my life isn't totally over, that I'm not going to be on the side of the parkway asking Jack Antonoff for cans. And so that's how I got out of it. You know, tears become holy in the form of ink on a page. That's how you get out of a lot of this stuff. And you're all on the SSRIs so that you don't feel anything anymore. And I mean, if you need that to survive, then I guess you need that to survive. But there are also other ways of surviving where none of you go jogging and none of you are writing. So the two things that God has given you to fight this, and you're bypassing them because you're like, you don't know how hard it is to get out of bed in the morning. Like, I do, but it's easier because I'm running and I'm writing. You know, like, you're a self-fulfilling prophecy that you can't get out of bed. And you can try to take it away with a magic pill. I mean, there'll be lyrics coming up similar to that, and you can do your best on that, but I don't think it's the best for you. And I think deep down you know that that's not the solution in the end either. And so, the writer is a firm belief that our tears become holy in the form of ink on the page. On February 5th, 2024, Taylor's team would post a black and white picture of Taylor, leaning on her hand, eyes closed, mouth open. I mean, can she close her mouth? See, there I go again. I love her, and that was a stupid thing to say. But I am the smallest man in the world, so here we go. On Taylor's shoulder are the words, "I love you. It's ruining my life." And on the far right, there's a bookmark-sized white space that has the file name, The Manuscript. Then there's a list of a side A through side D of songs that fill this theme. On February 23rd, 2024, her team would post a black and white picture of Taylor in a white men's dress shirt, standing in front of an infinite sea. Her hair is mussed in a Diane Keaton way, and she's looking at the camera like she needs to be talked out of Virginia Woolfing herself. Above her head, in the sky, is the name of the album. The second photo, also monochrome, is a closer view of the same scene. Taylor's eyes are closed, and near her collared shirt are the words, "Am I allowed to cry?" On the far right of the photograph is a bookmark-sized gray space that has the file name, The Albatross, with a side A through D of songs. On March 3rd, 2024, what seems to be the consensus album cover amongst the anthology fans was posted, with Taylor in a tight, light-colored tank top in front of a black background, left hand pressed to her forehead, right hand caressing her chin, with the album's title in gray piercing through the blackness. The second photograph that was posted is of Taylor, looking over her shoulder. Her eyes are covered mostly by her bangs, so to get a read on her emotions is difficult. She's turning a shoulder to the camera but appears to only be wearing a bra, and I wrote some more information that supports this theory, but as we previously established, I am not a pervert, so I will not be reading that bit. In the left corner of the photograph are the words, "Old habits die screaming." Then on the far right side of the picture is a black bookmark-sized space that has the file name, The Black Dog, then sides A through D of a track listing. On April 14th, Taylor's team posted a photograph of her holding the vinyl of Tortured Poets, the one that has the cover of her lying on the bed, definitely not touching herself. And the record is being held by Taylor, who's peeking through the clear vinyl. I hope she really did get her fans the clear vinyl, because the 1975 stan can tell you about the great medicine vinyl scandal of 2024, where the medicine vinyl was supposed to come in this clear yellow beeswax color, and then when we got it, that shit was just straight up orange, and we asked Dirty Hit about it, and they were like, "We looked into the issue and have concluded that the shit's all fucked, but most people don't mind." On April 18th, Taylor's team uploaded a picture of her hanging out with Post Malone, who looks great since he started following the T. James Reagan's tools for manorexia, and now I just really need him to take a step back and either get laser tattoo removal or shave his beard. You can be gross in like one way on your face, you can't be gross in two ways. Taylor posted, "The first single from the Tortured Poets department is Fortnight, featuring Post Malone." There's a whiter gray heart, then she continues, "I've been such a huge fan of Post because of the writer he is, his musical experimentation, and those melodies he creates that just stick in your head forever. I got to witness that magic come to life firsthand when we worked together on Fortnight. Honestly, can't wait for you guys to hear this song at midnight tonight and then see the video at 8 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow." Then, finally, on release day, we got the Tortured Poets department record. But that's not all. 2 hours after the LP came out, Swiftie posted, "It's the 2 a.m. surprise. The Tortured Poets department is a secret double album." Then she does a peace sign. I'd written so much tortured poetry in the past 2 years and wanted to share it with all of you, so there's a second installment of TTPD, the anthology. 15 extra songs. And now the story isn't mine anymore. It's all yours. Then she ended it with a white or gray heart, depending on what type of heart you have. The album was originally announced as a 16-track LP, which honestly is long for what the girlies have been putting out recently, but that's just because with the new album cycle, everyone's like, I'll put out the 12 tracks, and then everyone asked to put out the deluxe version, which is the same record with a couple more songs that were ready to go on the original record, but didn't get added because, money. You know it's a good deluxe version, though? Shh, don't tell anyone. You know what's a good deluxe version? Is Olivia Rodrigo's Guts deluxe version. There's this song called Stranger. It's so good. And then there's this one called, wait, let me sing it in my head. She's So American. And it's better than almost any song on the Tortured Poets department. It's sincere, and it's fun, and it's young, and it's alive. The anthology has a black background pic with 2 off-center boxes encasing Taylor, and there's a subtitle of the anthology on the cover. Honestly, I think Taylor should have gone for like a subheading, something that plays towards Matty, where for this version it should be like the Tortured Poets department, or these are the poems that I will write till I've grown. Something like I Love It When You Sleep, like Matty Healy style, inside jokey type title, where she definitely does that with another title that we're going to talk about. But, I would have loved a subtitle on this besides just the anthology. It's sort of lazy. But as you'll see, there's a very dark academia vibe to the anthology, and so I think the anthology kind of fits what she was going for. And who am I to Monday morning quarterback the gal who's dating a Hall of Fame tight end? So after massive delays of feeding my own ego and going on tangents,